Hi everyone, I'm Jan Huang. Our team work is great at Energy Consultant advising named participants on the impact of rapid data center role in New South Wales. The project has four tasks: demand growth, price impact, load profiling, and road season strategy. I will be resent for task one, which set the foundation for everything that follows. So for task one, we estimate how much additional electricity demand data center role could add to New South Wales over the next decade. New South Wales currently consumes 66 terawatt hour per year, with existing Sydney data center accounting for about 3 terawatt and 3.67 gigawatt by light already approved or under application. So we developed three scenarios, low, medium, and high, by varying the schedule of new IT load addition against that by light. All three say the same technical assumption. The BUE of 1.40, average utilization of 55%, and a 6 years linear ramp to the major load. Consistent with IEA and Oxford Economic Australian benchmark, the 10-year total range from 1,120 megawatt under load to 4,140 megawatt under high. One important caveat: of the 44 gigawatt of national connection requests in the 2025 EASR survey, only around 6 gigawatt were just likely to actually materialize. So even our close scenario assumes some by light addition. By financial year 2030, total New South Wales data center demand reached 5.5 terawatt hours under low, 7.8 under medium, and 10.6 under high. By, two, by 2035 financial year, the switch widens substantially from 10.4 terawatt hour up to 28 terawatt hours, representing between 16 and 44% of New South Wales rich consumption. The medium scenario, which we treat as a central landing case, align with the Oxford Economic Australian step change projection of around 11% of New South Wales rich by financial year 30. Under under any change, under any change, these three paths data centers shift from the NIC industrial load to the first order consideration in New South Wales system planning. The financial years 2035 demand range under medium scenario capacity is 15 to 34 terawatt hour, depending on the assumption. Utilization is the dominant level, moving from 65 to 85%, rise major demand by 31%. More than try the impact of an equivalent move in BUE. For the remaining tasks, load concentrate in large near flat profiles rather than dispersing uniformly. So task two should examine how the base load interacts with the renewable and renewable pattern. Medium scenario fit directly into task three at the blending bay, and even the flow case at enough volume to materially shift the rotation risk in task four.
Thanks, Yan Huang. And my part task two looks at the questions the client and customer are most worried about. If data center keep growing in the New South Wales, what does that do to the wholesale electricity prices over the next 5 years? And the short answer is the impact is real, but it is most likely a problem of risk and timing rather than a big rise in average bill. To see why, it helps you know how the price is actually set. In the national electricity market, the price is set every 5 minutes by the more expensive generator needed to meet demand. Cheap renewables clear first, and progressively their gas and peaking plants set the price at system tightens, and that gives us the curve on the right hand side over here. It is a convex, nearly flat when the system is relaxed, and then rising steeply as demand climbs. One important detail is that we model this against residual demand, which is the total demand minus rooftop solar, because that is what really decides how much expensive plans has to run. The whole task follow from this one shape. So for the method in three steps. So first we add data central load at the flat block on every 5 minutes interval, growing to plus 285 and 548 and 868 megawatts by financial year 30 under our low, mediums, and high scenarios. And second, we estimate the supply curve from the 3 years of MO data using isotonic and quantile regressions, which keeps it convex. And third, for every interval, we work out the uplift as the price at the new demand minus the price at all demands, and we add to the actual price, so the real spike and volatility stay intact. The chart on the right is the key point. An extra 100 megawatts barely move a normal price, about $1.50, but leaves an already high price by nearly $5. The cost lands in the table. So here are the results. On the left, the average wholesale cost rises from $102 a megawatt hours to 112 and 122 and 135 across three different scenarios. So plus 10, 20, and 33%. That sounds moderate, but the chart on the right is the real story. The numbers of hours each year above $300 jumps from around 116 today to over 500 under the high scenarios. So this is not a uniform rise in the bill because the curve is convex and the low pushes up the expensive hours far more than the technical ones, and the general consequence for a buyer is greater price risk. So the next question is when this happens, because timing is what makes it manageable or not. On the left, we split interval into stress periods, the low solar high demand times, and the normal ones. The uplift in the stress interval runs about 3 times the normal levels, so the low buy is hardest exactly when the grid is prioritized. On the right is the seasonal patterns. The winter clearly stand out at almost $29 under the medium case, and the reason is solar. And winter had the short days and little rooftop solar to subtract, so the residual demand stay high through both morning and evening peaks, which keeps the system on the steep part of the curve for longer. That's why the steepest single response of all, about $7 per 100 megawatts, falls in the winter evening peak, and peak window from 2 to 8 p.m. carries the largest dollar uplift overall. And finally, what should a buyer do? And since the problem is risk and timing, we tested a simple hedge, locking in the fixed price of $93, roughly where the future price today. The chart shows the trade-off as you hedge more, the average cost fall, and more importantly, volatility collapses from about $492 down to $123 at a 75% hedge. So we recommend hedge a partial share around 15 to 75%, which buys most of the certainty while keeping the cheap hours locked in early before demand pushes price up, and the target is cover for the winter evening peak where the impact concentrators, and revisit the position as conditions change. The bottom line is that hedging is mainly by certainty. Thank you for listening for the part two, and now I pass this for the next presenter.
Hi everyone. So for task 3, we model have outlet electric demand for a 50 new megawatt solar data center across financial year 2025 to 2030. Year 1 consumption is 488,636 megawatt hour. 6-year total is 3,082 gigawatt hour, and the COB about 5%. The 50 megawatt is IT critical loading only, so total draw is higher once cooling overhead is out, captured by PUE. The model PUE at the cost function 1.5 in the summer and 1.3 in the winter, rather in as rate 2021. 10 degrees seasonal swing at a 15% extra cooling load, mean utilization is 50%, growing at 2% per year, and giving summer highs at 62 megawatt, after winter at 55 megawatt. And the model had 3 layers. The layer one is the deterministic point, draw the equal IT load time utilization time PUE with a daily plateau shape and 1.5% weekend reduction. Layer 2 at a 5% annual shock per simulation year, capturing contact chain for hardware refresh. Without this, the year-to-year spread is essential year zeros, so the layer 2 is what drives the 5% COB. Layer 3 applied block bootstrap AR1 residual in a 7-day block across 500 simulation, production the P10, P30, and P90. The figure 1 here shows the plateau clearly with the summer above all other seasons at every hour. Figure 5 confirmed January and February is peak hour. A correlation against the state compilation gives 0.1% residual, and the model is eternity consistent. So demand grew from 488,626 megawatt hour in financial year 2025 to 539,282 megawatt hour in 2023, with the COB stable between 4.75 and 5.12%. 6-year total is 3,082 gigawatt hour, and P50 is the top 4 base case. The P10 to P90 spread roughly 65,000 megawatt hour per year to define the stress scenario. So the New South Wales grid peak in winter for space heating. Our data center that opposite highest in summer PNPU with ambience temperately. That means the facility at a load in summer afternoon, the most volatile window in the NEM. Because DC load cannot be different, financial hedging is the preferred strategy over demand management, which leads directly to task 4. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Pooja, and me and Soras are going to talk about the task for. Our task was to decide how a 50 megawatt New South Wales data center should buy its electricity over the next 6 years, that is going to be for the financial year 2025 to 2030, and how to manage the financial risk that comes with it. We tested 4 procurement strategies, and I'll start with the problem and the 2 grid-based options. Then Soras will be taking over the 2 building strategies and our recommendation. So starting with the problem, the fundamental challenge is matching our flat demand profile against a highly volatile solar-dominated market. New South Wales spot prices poses an extreme tail risk. When midday solar generation drops, evening prices can spike into the thousands of dollars per megawatt hour. Consequently, leaving our exposure unmanaged means the most expensive 1% of intervals will dictate 11.1% of our total annual bill. Moving forwards, and talking about the methodology, how we model it. To rigorously quantify this, we utilized a weekly block bootstrap methodology across 3 years of Australian energy market operator data, generating 500 Monte Carlo forward price maps. This approach is critical as it preserves realistic price autocorrelation and the flat tail volatility that a simple average model would dangerously obscure. Then, talking about the strategy 1, that is the wholesale spot. It involves purchasing 100% of our power on the wholesale spot market. While it offers the lowest baseline expected cost of $64.5 million annually, the risk profile is untenable for a corporate treasury. It carries a high volatility of $2.06 million and a 95th percentile cash flow at risk of $68 million. You can review the full year-to-year cost breakdown in the further task. Then moving forward to our next strategy, that is the future haze. This strategy mitigates the exposure to a 90% future haze via a quarterly fixed price swap. This acts as financial insurance. It successfully collapsed our volatility to just 0.17 million as illustrated in the task 4. However, this certainty commands a premium, driving our annual average cost up to 69.7 million and resulting in a negative net present value of 47 million. It buys certainty, but it does not generate savings. Furthermore, now Soras will be dealing about the strategies and the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. Hello, everyone. This is Saraj, and I'll be carrying forward the presentation. Moving on to the third strategy, battery arbitrage. While financial hedging manages risk, it does not reduce baseline expenditures. Strategy 3 transitions us to a physical asset model by deploying a 50 megawatt, 100 megawatt hour battery for a 50 million capital expenditure, utilizing a systematic arbitrage algorithm, charging during the 4 cheapest daily intervals and discharging during the 4 most expensive. We reduce annual costs to 56.1 million. This yields a 5.9-year payback period and a positive net present value of 27 million, while partially insulating us from the tail risk. So moving on to the next slide, we've got the strategy, which is the solar plus battery. This represents our optimal solution. We pair the battery with a 70 megawatt co-located solar farm. Solar generation powers the facility during the day and charges the battery to seamlessly manage the evening peak. This architecture cuts our annual power bill by 51%, dropping it to 31.7 million. It boasts the lowest volatility of all options at 1.31 million and an accelerated 3.7-year payback with a net present value of 179 million. Furthermore, it captures a quantified environmental, social, and governance benefit via the Australian Energy Market Commission's value for the emissions reduction framework. Moving on to comparing all of the options, which you can explore further in task 4, strategy comparisons. So strategy 4 unequivocally dominates. Spot exposure is cheap but volatile. The hedge is calm but expensive, and the battery provides a solid middle ground. Ultimately, physical generation provides a durable, structural hedge that financially outperforms the standard swaps. So, talking about where the 51% saving comes from is, we begin at 64.5 million spot baseline. Moving on to the battery arbitrage, it extracts 8.4 million in savings. The integrated solar and carbon valuation removes an additional 24.4 million, which lands us at a net annual cost of just 31.7 million. Carrying forward to the recommendations, our recommendation is definitive. We advise committing to the 70 megawatt solar and battery systems as our long-term structural procurement architecture. Concurrently, to protect the balance sheet during the asset build-out phase, we recommend utilizing strategy 2's hedging mechanics to lock in 80 to 90% of our residual grid purchases. We replace the market exposure with own generation, and we strictly ensure the gap until commissioning is complete. Thank you so much for your undivided attention, and hope you have a great day.